Hey, welcome back. This week we are in the third part of a series called Different. We're looking at how we can pray different prayers, maybe prayers that you're not used to praying, or looking at prayer in just a little bit of a different light. My name is Lou, and this is Community Church Online. So if this is your first time joining us online, this is Community Church. It's not the way we expected it to be. We just turned 1 year old. We launched in January of last year, and we get really excited when we have people join us for the first time. And so if you would go over to communitychurch.net/connect, there's a little form on there, and that lets us know that you decided to join us. And we're not going to flood your inbox or anything like that, but we would like to update you on things going on here at the church, especially as we look toward reopening. And if you take just a minute to fill it out, we will send you a little gift card for some coffee in the mail. It probably would also be helpful for you to know that every week we've got brand new programs for kids. You could check all of those out on our YouTube channel, or on the app, or on communitychurch.net/media. So this service is technically the official online service for the week of January 24th, Sunday, January 24th. But if you've been tracking with us for a little while, you probably picked up on the fact that we usually publish our services a few days earlier, especially if you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. Sometimes on Friday, sometimes on Saturday. So the reason I'm telling you that is because community groups, registration for community groups closes on January 24th. That's today on Sunday, if you're watching this on Sunday. Now, community groups are a place where we try to connect relationally. They're smaller groups, right? And grow spiritually. You might be thinking, as I would be thinking, why would you close community groups, right? You're a church, how can you tell someone they can't join a group? That's horrible. And that's certainly understandable if you feel that way. However, we believe that people grow most frequently and most effectively in the context of groups, in the context of relationships. And when you're in a group with people, over time there begins to form this bond of trust. And the more you trust one another, the easier it is to open up and share your lives and share your real doubts and struggles and issues. And that's how people tend to grow, when they open up. But if we're constantly adding new people to groups, it is constantly throwing off the chemistry of the group. It constantly causes the group to have to reset from a point of trust, because things are different when you first meet somebody, right? So what we do here is we have seasons where it's several months and we just chunk it, right? And we have an opening, a registration period, and then we close it, and it's closed for several months. Then we open them again. We start a whole bunch of new ones. So if it's been kind of hard for you to wrap your mind around why we would close groups, that's why we have found that it works way, way better for groups when they're not constantly adding new people. And hopefully you'll be able to experience that. So if you haven't been able to get into a group and you missed registration this time around, don't worry, because a new season will be starting up soon. Head over to communitychurch.net/groups, fill out the form, and we'll get you all the information you need. And hopefully we'll get you plugged into a group as soon as possible. We started something all the way back in March when the pandemic started. We call it Today's Big Idea. Go to communitychurch.net/app, and there's a link that will take you directly to the place where you can download our app. So there have been some really amazing things happening here on the property. You might have seen some pictures that have kind of leaked out on Instagram. We haven't had an official reveal yet or anything, but you might have seen things. Things are looking great, and there's some really cool things happening in the community. All that to say, all of that is possible because people in our church and in our community, and even some people who don't go to our church, are so incredibly generous with their finances. If you're part of the group of people who supports us financially, we are so grateful. We wouldn't be here. We wouldn't have made it through 2020 without you. We are so grateful. And if you want to be one of those people who supports us financially, you can do that over at communitychurch.net/give. But please don't feel any pressure to give, especially if this is your first time with us. Don't forget to be on the lookout in early February. We're going to announce what our plans are looking like for the future. It'll either be a reopening date or something about the idea of reopening and what that's going to look like. So be on the lookout. The first Sunday of February. We're excited for when we can meet back in person again. But until then, I hope that you enjoy this week's online service.
There is healing in the power of the Lord Most High. There is courage in the shadow of his wings. There is peace unending over all my life. There is freedom that washes over me. And I find all I need here in your presence, Lord. I open up my soul. You fill me up with all I need here in your presence, Lord. Where blessings overflow, there's always abundantly more. There is rest in the goodness of the Lord my God. There is treasure in the kindness of my King. There is comfort in knowing your unfailing love. And my provider, you set my spirit free. And I find all I need here in your presence, Lord. I open up my soul, and you fill me up with all I need here in your presence, Lord. Where blessings overflow, there's always abundantly more. More than I could ask or seek, more than I could fathom. God, your love for me, more than I imagined. More than I could ask or seek, more than I could fathom. God, your love for me is better than I imagined. More than I could ask or seek, more than I could fathom. God, your love for me is better than I imagined. I find all I need here in your presence, Lord. I open up my soul. You fill me up with all I more than I could ask or seek, more than I could ask or seek, more than I could fathom. God, your love for me is better than I imagined. More than I could ask or seek, more than I could fathom. God, your love for me is better than I imagined.
This is part 3 of a message series on prayer. When I was 13 or 14, I was sitting with a bunch of other teenagers in youth group, along with one of the youth group leaders at my church, and it was time for prayer. So we sat down and started praying, and every person in the group prayed at some point except me, and it came to be, I guess, my turn, even though no one officially told me beforehand, hey, we're all going to take a turn praying. And when it was my turn, I sat there quiet, dreading what was happening, praying that somebody would end this awkward time. And I didn't say anything for minutes until finally somebody said amen, and it was over, and we moved on, and nobody said a word about it. It was incredibly awkward and uncomfortable, and I'm still slightly embarrassed by it. But I bring this up because no one then had taught me how to pray. And this message is meant to be very practical, and it's meant to help you know how to pray. Because you might be a praying person, you might be somebody who wishes to pray more, or somebody who feels like you're supposed to be praying, or maybe even you're somebody who doesn't know if prayer even does anything. You're not even sure if you're doing it right because you're not sure if you're seeing any outcome from your praying. And if that is you, that's great. I'm glad you're watching. I'm glad you're listening because I think the things we're going to talk about are going to be really, really helpful. You see, a guy named Matthew, one of Jesus' followers, who was originally not one of Jesus' followers. He was a tax collector who left his lucrative job to follow Jesus, this Jewish teacher guy. He recorded the things that Jesus said. Jesus taught a lot, and fortunately for us, Matthew decided to write it down, to record it, to preserve it. And now, 2,000 years later, we have access to some of the things that Jesus had said. There's a portion of Matthew's writings called the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus had just finished talking about how people are supposed to do their good works in such a way so that when people see them doing good things, they will give glory, they'll give honor, they'll look to God. And then a little bit later, he gives this warning. He says, don't do good things just to be seen by other people. If you do that, you will be rewarded by people's adulation, by their being impressed by you, by thinking that you're a good person. That's all you get. Instead, go do your good things, Jesus says, in secret. Then, God, who sees what you do in secret, will reward you. And it's after that that Jesus starts talking about prayer. And I want to pick it up there. This is Matthew, the Gospel of Matthew, right? The good news of Jesus according to Matthew, chapter 6, starting at verse 5. And when you pray, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the street corners to be seen by others. Truly, I tell you, they have received their reward in full. So Jesus is talking here to a pretty religious crowd. Most of them, if not all of them, are Jewish. They know what it means to pray. They've seen lots of people pray. They've probably seen their parents pray, the religious leaders pray, and Jesus starts giving them warning, says, don't be like those who pray in the synagogues and on the street corners just to be heard, just to be seen by others. They're hypocrites. In the Greek, that's basically an actor. They're pretending to be pious so that they score points with other people. They're earning social credit by looking holy. Don't be like them. Because when they do that, they get their reward. Their reward is people's, ooh, look at them. And that's it. Now he contrasts that with this. It says, but when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. Then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. Jesus is trying to give them an alternate way of praying, a different way of praying. They've seen it modeled by the religious leaders, maybe their parents, maybe they've done it themselves, where when they're surrounded by other people, when there are other people who can hear or are praying with them, they change their style of speech. They change what they would say. Rather than just being honest and speaking directly to God in prayer, they start trying to say fancy things. They try to sound holy. Maybe they try to sound like they're better informed and they know the scriptures really well. Basically, they're trying to score points socially. They're trying to impress others. And the alternative that Jesus offers is like, no. Get rid of the audience. Go into a secret place. That is not to say group prayer is a bad thing. That is not to say that praying in public is a bad thing. The secretness, right? The quietness, the being alone paves the way for sincerity. He's like, just go before God, just you and him, and pray there. And then Jesus promises that God the Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward that person. I can't say with certainty what the reward is, how God will choose to reward the person who prays in secret. What I can say is that those who choose to pray in such a manner to impress others, that all they get is people thinking they're more religious, that they are more holy, that they're more pious. And that's as far as it goes. Jesus knew that his audience was really big on the idea of social status, that they could take something that is meant to be beautiful, like prayer, a religious activity, and use it, maybe even unintentionally, as a way to climb the social ladder. That to pray means maybe I can impress this person and look good and seem more holy. And Jesus is like, no, get rid of all of that. Remove that temptation by praying in secret. Because when you pray in secret, there you can be honest, because there's no people to impress, there's no audience. Then Jesus offers a second warning about prayer. And when you pray, do not keep on babbling like pagans, for they think they will be heard because of their many words. Do not be like them, for your Father knows what you need before you ask him. So he's also condemning the practice of having these long, repetitive, mechanical prayers as if they were incantations, as if they were spells to rattle off to convince God about something. He's not condemning repetition in prayer. That's a whole other thing. He himself, when praying in the Garden of Gethsemane later in his life, prayed the same thing more than once. What he's talking about here is when people's hearts are absent from their prayer, when they themselves are maybe not even have the presence of mind to pray honestly. What Jesus is advocating here is quality over quantity in our prayers. He's saying just say what you mean and mean what you say when you pray. And this is phenomenal news for those that hate public speaking. That's like a big phobia for you. Because he's like, here's how I want you to pray, right? Pray in secret, keep your prayers short, and be sincere. That's how I want you to pray. Pray secret, short, sincere prayers. Okay, I can do that. I can be in secret. I can be by myself and pray to God. I can pray short prayers. That sounds really good. I don't want to spend too much time doing this, nor do I feel like I have the words to keep it going on for a long time. And I will do my best to be honest. I'll be sincere. I'll be real with God. But like, seriously, what do I actually say? What words should come out of my mouth? And I love that Jesus didn't just stop right there, but that he continued teaching his people how to pray. And it passes on to us. Now, before I get into these words, I do want to say this. I don't know if we're supposed to just pray this prayer, at least in English, because that's not the original language, but verbatim. That is word for word, but rather capture the ideas represented in this prayer and pray these things. This is starting at verse 9. This, then, is how you should pray. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Lou talked about this in the first week, but I think that this portion right here is meant to be about orientation. It's meant to put our lives in a proper position in respect to God's position. God is not just a cosmic being that is far away and distant, but rather he is close, yet he's still in authority. That is the orientation. We're supposed to recognize ourselves as being under his authority, as if we are sons and daughters of his. And Jesus continues, your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. This part of the prayer is about alignment. So God is, above, and he's got his own plans. He's got his own will. He's got a purpose for my life, for your life, for existence. And now this part of the prayer is about aligning my desires, my will, my kingdom with his. Your will be done on earth, here, around me, in me, through me, as it is in heaven. In your kingdom, things are the way they're supposed to be. Help me align my life with your purpose. Another way to pray this portion of your kingdom come, your will be done, is to say, God, I'm not in charge. I'm not in control. You are. But there are things that I want to have happen a certain way, and I'm not sure if you want them to go that way or if you want them to happen at all. So help me reshape my will, reorganize my priorities. Let my heart beat at your heartbeat's pace. And God, if things are going in a way that I don't like and I don't want, God, I pray that you would help me trust you through this process and trust on you for the outcome. So there's orientation, alignment, and then Jesus leaves room for us to make our requests known to God. And he puts them in three categories. There's provision, there's pardon, and there is protection. And this is what Jesus says. This is the first part, provision. Give us today our daily bread. That is, Lord, provide. Meet my needs. physically, emotionally, spiritually. I have things that I need for survival, for existence. God, I'm praying that you would just meet them. Provide food for me, provide shelter for me, provide meaningful work for me. I'm going to trust you for the things that I need. Continues, and forgive us our debts as we also have forgiven our debtors. What he's requesting, what Jesus is saying is make your request for forgiveness known to God. You have sinned. You have crossed lines. The other rendition of this prayer often goes, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who have trespassed against us. What Jesus is saying is, look, you have crossed lines. To trespass means to go into places where you don't belong. You have done things you shouldn't have done. Now you need forgiveness. You need to be made right. So request that God will make you right. But here's the catch. It is not, God, if you forgive me, then I'll forgive this person. It's not an exchange in that manner. It's, God, I have chosen to forgive this person, even though they owe me, even though they've hurt me. Now, God, would you choose, please, to forgive me for what I have done wrong before you? That is the request for pardoning. And the last part is a prayer for protection. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. Lead us not into temptation doesn't mean that God normally leads us to be tempted, but rather this prayer is meant to ask God to create such a distance between us and wrongdoing, sin, hurting others, offending God, or harming our own lives, that we wouldn't even be tempted to do wrong. That we're so far, the distance is so great from the edge of doing something terrible that we're not even tempted to go that route. That's what this prayer is about. And then the last part, deliver us from evil. Deliver us from the evil one is saying, God, I recognize that there are forces other than good in this world. Deliver me from them. Protect me from them. Make it so that I am not harmed by them. Now, Jesus isn't saying this explicitly, but I'm pretty sure that the three requests that Jesus is saying that we can make to God for provision, for pardon, and for protection fit right inside the previous part of the prayer when he talked about, or when he said rather, your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. That God's will is to provide for us. It is to pardon us, to forgive us. It is to protect us. That's what God ultimately wants for people, for us. After going through the 6th chapter of Matthew's gospel, I can no longer say that I have not been taught how to pray, because Jesus' teaching was very straightforward and clear. First, we are to pray in secret, pray short prayers, and pray sincerely. And when we do that, we accomplish three things. First, it's orientation. We get our position in relation to God's in order, that he is above and we are below. Second, it's about alignment. We try to get our wills matched up to God's. And then third, we can make our requests known to him. Requests for provision, for pardon, and for protection. So, what do we do now? We go and pray. And why do we do that? So that God, who sees us in secret, will reward us. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.